That's a cool jumper, man.
Yeah,
I
it is.
must say.
I had to. Yeah.
I don't follow it, but it's a cool jump. Is it what's happening at the moment? That is like it's all over social media and people are going to the. Is it the NFL that is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But Dolphins are finally cool. And I think part of the reason it's getting so big in New Zealand is because our quarterback is Tuaniga Manuola Pola Tangavailoa, and he's Samoan heritage. So a lot of us Kiwis are probably getting behind that and going, yo, that's our boy. Yeah.
Right. So that's why there's a big push on social.
And because we're winning heaps now. Yeah. And football as a sport's growing in Aotearoa too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we got teams going away to national flag football tournaments this year. Got a couple of those. Our woman flag football team was actually in the American football stadiums this year playing their tournaments. So yeah, it's picking up over here. Yeah.
Hey, the evolution of sports, Stella.
It's a changing game.
Man, Stella is a karate champion, man. So watch out, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Watch
Back
out,
in the
man.
day. Back in the day.
Okay.
But you don't forget how to ride a bike, eh? So be careful,
You don't
man.
forget how to ride a bike, let me tell you.
Protect your neck. Protect your neck. But hey, like this thing of like how one modality might mean nothing in one generation and then a few years later it catches up. Hey, a country has a new way of seeing the sport.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's like, if you have a look at the evolution, like when I was a kid, there was rugby, netball and cricket, and then on to a lesser extent football, soccer, and to a lesser extent maybe hockey. And and tennis as an individual sport, aside from that, there weren't the options. And now there's so many options for kids and so many exciting sports and so many individual sports that, it gives people so many more options, and that caters to different body types, it caters to different personalities, So,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a good thing. Diversity is a good thing.
Diversity is a good thing.
Right.
Where do you watch the NFL games?
I watched them on Sky Go. I just watched the ones that are available on ESPN. Yeah. It's way too expensive to pay for the actual streaming. $300 to watch the season. I'm Lex.
Interesting, because like nowadays everything is accessible. You can watch anything, but you gotta pay for each one of those things. It's all about like being exclusive in the subscription of that platform.
Yeah, we're going back to pirating.
Yeah.
But I've only got the school laptop, so I'm not doing no pirating on the school laptop.
It's like, no.
Just stick to ESPN skygo.co.nz.
Man, where does the motivation come to study mathematics and economics?
And the
economics.
The economics started from a place where I enjoy study, and I was quite studious at school, and I liked to work, and I kind of wanted to understand, I found out that economics was about understanding the way that sort of our country is moving in terms of the economic sense, in terms of how our government and our businesses and us as consumers, how we all interact. So I found an interest in that and wanted to pursue that further, which led me to my university study in economics. And I spent 5 years studying economics, 8 years if you include high school. And throughout high school, I was kind of happy. I was like, yo, cool, this is interesting, I'm learning this stuff. Then I got to my first year of university, and I did my first year of economics, and I went, okay, I'm kind of just refreshing a lot of the stuff that I've already learnt before. And in doing so, I'm becoming more aware that a lot of the assumptions we make and a lot of the models we use, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with. I would like to see them develop more, and I assume that's going to come down the road. Go to level 2 economics, and the math gets a bit harder, but a lot of the assumptions and a lot of the modeling, like sort of things that I'm not super okay with, stay there. Okay, level 3, go to level 3, go to my master's, and I got advice to do my master's by coursework rather than my master's by thesis. It's a trap. It's way easier to do coursework. But doing a thesis gives you a real depth of knowledge. I got a breadth of knowledge across different types of economics and different types of economic thought, but I didn't really develop an in-depth sense of economics, and I learned a breadth of economics that was, again, still not really satisfying me in terms of giving me models and ways of thinking about the economy that I thought were true and useful.
Right. So pretty much you were learning something like already like ready for you to digest. Like you could not make sense of the whys and why the world is operating on that. It was just like a school of thought,
Yeah.
and that's what you get.
Yeah.
Good luck. Operate with what we're giving you.
Aye.
But you started to question that, which I believe it's not a big percentage of the people who would question, or you think most people question, but they just don't know?
Nah, because it's quite a tricky subject. A lot of like my peers were just studying it to know it, and there was a lot of rote learning. I think we have quite a culture of rote learning rather than looking to digest and understand material. Like there were very few people that I met during my economics study, and maybe this is just on me not being the most sociable and friendly guy, but I wasn't having these conversations about the things that we were learning in the sense of, okay, do you agree? Do you understand? What do you think? What conversations I would have was, okay, how do we do this? How do we use the model to get our assessments done?
Right.
How do we use the model we have? Not whether or not.
So
the
it was
model
driven.
works.
It was driven to pass, not to
not
grow
to
or
understand
develop,
and grow. Yeah.
So what sort of things were you uncomfortable with, and what directions? Can you just give us a bit of an insight into those things?
So it was for like for that most of that time it was just an unease and okay, hopefully that these become more developed and we start to break down some of these assumptions. These assumptions would be things like assuming that humans are rational.
Right.
And rational, I can't even remember the definition now, but rational, look up the economic definition of rationality. It's crazy. It's like people always make perfectly calculated decisions.
Yeah.
Like they go through ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
And there's a field of economics called behavioral economics, which is breaking it down and going, okay, well, these are the heuristics we use and sort of developing that, which is a really awesome field of economics. But again, I did 2 behavioral papers, one at undergraduate level, one at postgraduate level. The rest was just sort of your standard models. And I got sort of clarity behind why I was feeling about these assumptions when I read it's called something, Debunking Economics, a book by Steve Keen. So I seen that title and went, ooh, interesting, what's he got the korero? And then I read it and I went, oh, yo, this is a massive kaupapa. So some of the things that he talked about that I went like, yeah, this is like a pretty central thing to economics. One of the things that jumps out is the ignorance of credit. So when we're using our model, we don't include often the function of loans as an input into how spending in the economy circulates. It's often just these 2-3 sector models with people, businesses, government, people and businesses, and how the money flows between these guys without acknowledging that a good portion of our spending and especially our investment is loan backed. It's fueled by capital, which is ignored by these models. So as soon as they're ignoring this, I'm going, well,
that's such a big hole.
Yeah. This is
what's the reason they would ignore it?
I can't remember. I don't want to guess.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But it just made you feel uneasy. It was just like not many answers for things.
Yeah, I went, okay, I'd like to spend my time. I don't like this model of economy. And my friend Morgan, who I'd like to have had come on, he can explain.
We'll bring Morgan.
He's got to get around. He's real into the actually explaining why this isn't working and this kind of side of it, whereas I kind of went, this sucks. Okay, what can I move on to now? So I don't have all the answers.
So when you decided to move on and where was that going? Where did you see your path? You were like,
I had started studying mathematics in my first year, and then I failed my calculus paper twice and passed it on my third try through. So I knew that I quite enjoyed the study of mathematics as a formal language and as something that you can, if you're wanting to build a new understanding of a subject, then starting from mathematics is a real basic and good place to start. So I knew that I wanted to develop my own thinking around how we can model economy. And so I went, okay, I want to go back to mathematics. Yeah.
So it's really interesting to hear you talk about mathematics as a language, because I think probably for a lot of people, they would think of mathematics, and I probably include myself in this, right? You know, you think of mathematics as a problem or problem solving, and yet you're talking about this as a language, and that's quite a different conceptualization, you know, of the thing, isn't it?
Aye.
So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? Because I find it really interesting.
Yeah, that's actually something that I try to bring up when I'm having kōrero with my students is mathematics is the thing that happens between you defining the problem and solving it. Mathematics is the series of logical and reasonable steps that you take using sort of using the language. It's a formal language. It says 1 + 1 = 2, and that's defined in the sense that, okay, we've defined 1 to mean a single unit, and we've defined addition to mean you put this unit with this unit, and it becomes the sum of those units. And we've got all these formal definitions so that you can just run through it all. So computation is the problem solving. Problem solving is the problem solving, but mathematics is the language that we're using for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's a really interesting way to think about the subject. It's quite different, eh? You know, I think it opens doors rather than shuts them.
Yeah. I definitely see in our curriculum a real emphasis, like you use, say, on tool use, on mathematics as a tool, rather than mathematics as a language. But it's also, I'm not entirely sure that I think that's a bad thing. I think it's good to use mathematics as a tool because it helps you understand it as a language. But maybe some interweaving. Yeah.
Man, what about when you have some people in the government, not only in New Zealand, I think this is a thing all over the world, saying how important it is to bring, like, to make people literate and like to teach pretty much the language that they speak would be English and mathematics. You know, I don't know if I see a problem there, but usually for those things to have more attention, you gotta let other subjects go, and you won't. So what's your take on that?
My take is a little spicy. I think that the sign of a healthy economic system is for the ability of the simple-minded to remain simple-minded. So people who don't want to study, I think we have in our education, it's not really choice. It's very much you come, you do, and if you don't, there's less options available to you. And maybe that's just by the nature of a thing. Literacy and numeracy, practicing these allows you to access a very wide range of education. So if you have these basic building blocks, then you can go out and whatever it is that you're interested in, now you can learn that. I think if we're trying to just cater to everyone's interests by offering all these different subjects, we're going to struggle to have a quality education. But what we can do is train teachers to be very good at teaching literacy, to be very good at teaching numeracy, and to be very good at teaching people to teach themselves. And then from there, we can educate ourselves in a way that is probably more sensible.
So I think what I'm hearing from you, and tell me if I'm completely off the mark here,
Aye.
is that what you're saying here, or what I'm hearing from you, is that the value is in teaching people how to ask the questions to get to the answers that they want.
Aye.
Not just learning formulaic.
Aye. Aye.
Yeah. So if we're educating our people to be able to think critically about any subject that takes their interest or whatever, that there is much more valuable than rote learning, for example.
Aye. I think so. I think rote learning is also helpful though.
Yeah.
I think that builds your brain and your ability to remember things in a really useful way. Yeah. And again, I think they're just balance.
Balance.
It's just about balance. Yeah. The middle way.
Balance, it's good.
And there's always the thing with things evolve, but the way that we teach doesn't evolve. You have the classroom, you have the person at the front,
Yeah.
and then you have a lot of people looking at the teacher, whoever is there, whoever retains that knowledge and the power.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? I'm like, they sound like philosophical questions, like it's hard to say that they're right or wrong, that are right or wrong answers, because at the end of the day, it's how that person at the front is dealing with those people, like is the teacher seeing the students as people with personalities who know things that the teacher doesn't know? Is he opening that but then there's the power trip as well, because some teachers are very tough, so what do you guys think about the format, the good old classroom format that we still operate in?
I think it's a philosophical question, but I also think it's a pedagogical question as well. So about the philosophical question, what is it that we can know about teaching? And the pedagogical question, how is it that we can teach this thing? And so I think I reckon, and this is just my reckon here, that the education system in New Zealand takes a bit of a hard rap. I think there are certainly ways in that field that need to be addressed and changed and upskilled and all the rest of it. But I also think that there's plenty of teachers at all different levels, from preschool to playgroup to tertiary level, to industry level, where the teachers are very motivated to find the best way to communicate with their students and to find the way that flipped classrooms, for example, and to allow acknowledgement of neurodiversity and neurodiverse ways of learning that become much more inclusive. And that, I think, is a good thing. So I'm not going to bag the teachers.
No. Hard job. What do you think, bro? How long have you been teaching for?
So this is my first year teaching. So I've been teaching 7 months now, and studying my teaching alongside while I go out and practice. So I'm being trained in discursive practice. When my mentors are coming, they're looking to see that I'm not standing at the front of the thing the whole time going because this isn't effective teaching. The way we are being trained to teach at Ako Matatupu, Teach First New Zealand, is that what works for Māori works for everyone. And what works for Māori is not standing at the front and going ra-ta-ra-ta-ra, you guys go do da-da-da-da-da. We are being trained to encourage discussion and facilitate a family-like environment, in which, through the use of high expectations, well-formed classroom things that you do each day, we're able to create a collaborative learning environment.
And so relational.
Yeah. So we work from the book Teaching to the Northeast, where the Northeast is highly effective pedagogy meets highly effective relationship building. Yeah. I found teaching to the East, building those relationships, easier than the pedagogy. Actually being able to put frameworks in place that, for one, gets students out of their comfort zone so they actually have discussions in a maths room, get people interested enough to want to participate in the lesson without, I don't want to rely on shut up every 5 seconds, shut up and listen. I want you to come to my class and be interested enough to engage by your own energy. And so I don't quite know. I often find myself at the front when I'm teaching a topic. I don't often find that I'm getting much discourse. I often find that I'm teaching it and then we're practicing it. And during that practice, that's when I'll go around the classroom and I'll work with each student individually with the time that we get. But not this building of community. Not yet anyway. I hold belief that these guys aren't just telling me that this is possible and it's never going to happen. I hold faith that it'll get there. Yeah.
I feel so privileged to be in Aotearoa, New Zealand at this moment, at this time where there's a cool wave of like, some guests use the word renaissance of the Maori culture and how there's value now, like it's at the forefront. The way that you're training and the way that you are working, the way that you are doing your thing, having these concepts. Did you have any reference from when you were a student? And even for you, Stella, if you have those memories of Maori values or just was that a conversation that it was happening in school grounds?
For me, I was at a Christian-based high school, so our kaupapa was Christianity.
No. No. What I mean was like the answer is no. There was no Maori values. Nothing wrong with the Christian values. Just no Maori values.
No. That was our kaupapa was faith-based. Yeah.
Right.
Aye.
Me too. I studied in a Christian school.
Aye.
In Brazil.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So did I at high
Pray
school.
before every lesson, eh?
Oh, damn. So there's not much flavor in this conversation. Hey, look at us, all of us. We're going to go to the same place.
But I mean, when I was going to high school, definitely not at the same time period as some other people sitting in the room. Just in case you hadn't noticed. But yeah, but Māori culture was, not present in any functional way in public life or in school life. It definitely changed, I think, a bit. When I was at university, there was a greater understanding, and I think also particularly from an environmental perspective about, Indigenous ways of thinking about the environment and relating, because it's, of course, relational, about relating with the environment and not seeing aspects of the world as individual siloed things that don't have interaction, with the other things happening around them. And I guess in some ways that relates back to what you were saying about your economic theories that you were being taught that completely ignored the credit side of the equation, because it is that thing of looking at, this is a problem and it's very siloed and doesn't have interaction with these other things. So I think definitely the inclusion of te ao Māori as a way of thinking and being in the world is becoming more of a renaissance, and well before, not well before time, like I said that wrong, should have happened centuries ago. And so I think that as a nation, we're a bit slow off the mark on that. And often, you know, people in Aotearoa compare ourselves to other places with First Nations and go, oh, yeah, but we're so much better than whatever, you know, the Australians or the Canadians or the whatever. But actually, that's the wrong way of asking that question. I don't think we should be saying, oh, look at us, look how good we are because they're slower. That, you know, is what more can we do? You know, because it always strikes me, you know, when you arrive in Aotearoa and you walk in to Auckland Airport and, you know, it's like kia ora and there's, you know, the bird life and there's lots of Māori symbolism and all the rest of it. And then that's the last, you know, so we're prepared to hold up Māori culture as, oh, this cool thing, but not prepared to live it. We need to embrace that more. We need to say this is unique. And for me, as a Pākehā woman, I'm good with that. I think that's good. You know, I think we have so much more to learn because I don't know that our economic system and our social system is serving the world right now.
Drop the mic. Don't drop the mic because it's an expensive mic. But it's true. Come on, man. Give us some juice there.
One thing that I like that you said in there was with the environment, how we interact with the environment, how we are with the environment, where a lot of the economic thought is what the environment can do for us.
And that should be changed, right?
Evolved.
Yeah.
Should deepen. That's where we need to have that combining of minds and that te ao Māori interwoven, intertwined with te ao Pākehā, with te ao ingarangi, is sort of bringing these deepenings of relationship with the world around us into the systems that we're using. Because it is often said that it would be too much to uproot the current system completely, and that evolving it is perhaps the more realistic way to approach that problem.
I wanted to ask you that because there's always criticism towards the system that currently operates, and I often think, because when you have that punk rock attitude, you say it's gonna break, you know, it's just a matter of time. But that doesn't sound very realistic. What you're saying, it makes more sense. It's an evolution, is a mindset, and it gets a bit spiritual in a way because it feels like it's a key that should be turning in people's minds to actually understand that we're working with nature. There's not nature working for us, right? It makes more sense to fix something than trying to start something new, or there's room for like revolutions and new concepts to come and really shake things up. What do you think?
I struggle with this concept. I've been in both camps, and I like to walk between them. I definitely think that there's something to be said for that. The economy that we have right now is necessarily based on the growth of the economy. When we talk about recession, we're not always talking about, we're actually losing stuff. We've got less stuff. We're talking about we're increasing the amount of stuff we have slower. And our economy is built upon the growth of the economy. And because we've been able to, there's pain in the downturn with anything, and it does get a bit spiritual. The world, I believe, is spiritual in nature. There's pain in the downturn, and we have ways of using stimulus. So this is our credit, this is our different things, this is our making fake clothes and weird food using bits and bobs instead of sticking to traditional ways. We've used this to put off collapse, to put off downturn. And so then you start to get into the dynamics of evolutionary systems, and as you're pushing against this downturn, do you push it into a place where what could be growth and then loss and then growth and loss, that we're pushing it into a growth and then it's a cliff where we're falling off and we're having serious harm done, rather than just allowing the pace of life to equilibrate on its own? I think I got a little bit lost.
That's
No,
cool.
that was cool. Yeah.
That's cool. It's
Sort of the ebb and flow.
Yes.
Aye.
Yeah.
And then Stella, just to try to bring that sociology element to it, it feels like when the cliff comes, whoever is already at the bottom suffers so much more.
That's you don't need to be a sociologist to look at to understand that. I mean, you know, the numbers alone tell us that. The numbers alone tell us that the marginalised groups in New Zealand have become more marginalised, that the poor have become more poor, and that, you know, everyone's, you know, the big election thing now is, oh, the squeezed middle. But actually all of New Zealand is trending this way, apart from a very small section of society that is doing phenomenally well on the backs of other people, and it's creating a more unequal society, and that in itself, and here we go rabbiting on sociologically, is, you know, all of the social harms that we see, whether that be crime, whether that be health statistics, whether it be education, whether it be whatever you want to point a stick at, all of those issues become larger and greater with a larger and greater disparity between people. And that, and I'm no economist, but the ideal, if there is such a thing as an ideal, theory of economics would be about closing that gap. Not about just serving one section of society. That's my view on it. That's my take on it.
Right.
So,
I've seen a statistic once, a data point, that the top 0.1% are losing in wealth to the top 0.01%. So even if you're in the top 0.1% richest people in the world, you're still losing in terms of equality out to the people above you in the sense of making more income rather than any other sort of value.
and so if we take that to its conclusion, if we looked at the economy and we said it was the economy, here's the economy, right? So there's only a certain amount in the economy, and you know, one person gets to drink all of that glass, and the other 99.9% get the little bit. That is trending towards a disaster, and there is the cliff there. So, you know, again, if we go back to the environment, we go back to Te Ao Māori, to indigenous understandings of the world, which has seasons, which has a circular flow, which has, you know, the dips and the rise, and it's modulated. And if you think of the word revolution, okay, so revolution is, you know, Che Guevara and revolution, but revolution is also revolution. It's also going around.
Right.
So there's something in that idea too about how do we have our world that does that rather than that.
I like to think about civilizations that existed before us, and I often think if this is just not like it's what it is. I don't like that way of thinking, but I often think about that. I'm like, what if that's how it is? Because humans do thrive in collaboration, in cooperation, but that doesn't eliminate our greed. You know what I mean? Right. It's part of us. It's within. It's just nature, like that. We tap into that thing of, even when you are at the 0.01%, you know that you're not as powerful as the 0.0011, whatever. And then there's some sort of, there's a reaction to that. It's just a human thing to want more. Right. Are we all like that? Is a mindset? Is it something that we are programmed to be? What do you guys think when it comes to our reaction? Because I see people who do well in the bush doing the thing, but like I don't have deep conversations with them. I don't know if they actually are jealous about the other lifestyles. I don't know. What about when it comes to our reaction to wealth and having and being more than others?
I think this for me, there's two types of right wing and there's two types of left wing. Okay, there's the healthy right wing, which says, okay, competition exists, struggle exists, there's beauty in the struggle, and there's success that comes from competition. And this strives against the ability for those in power to have greed and want more and more, because they're not winning that spiritual battle within themselves to realize that if they don't check their own desires, their desires will run into infinity, right? There's no happiness at the end of that path because you've chosen a path with no end. On the left wing, we have a healthy left wing, which says we as humans, as social beings, we thrive when we work together and we work in unity and we come together to create things. And then there's unhealthy left wing who say, I want the handout. I think that this little bit here is enough. I've done enough. I've done enough work. I deserve this. These people say, I want. These people say, I deserve, when they're at their unhealthy. When the left wing's not winning their spiritual battle, and this is probably a little bit, they're saying, I deserve, and not realizing that they have everything they deserve, because what they had, what they deserve is what's in front of them. And when you are at peace with what's in front of you, then you have peace. Like that's where that pathway ends as well. If you're still saying, I deserve, you're the same as saying, I want. It's the same. It's the right wing and the left wing does the horseshoe. Yeah. The extremes always come together at a centrist. Yeah. Aye.
Yeah, I think in terms of your question about civilizations and is the human condition, I mean, I guess I'm paraphrasing your thing here, is the human condition that we are inherently selfish, self-serving creatures, and therein lies the destruction of civilization, or the civilization as we know it, as per previous civilizations that are no longer around, right? So I have a friend who is a disaster studies guy. He's a professor of sociology.
Illinois?
Eh?
Is it Illinois?
No. Shout out Steve Matthewman.
There you go. Right.
It's from Auckland University. Yeah, Steve. Anyway, so I was having a conversation with him. A really interesting guy, and so he's been quite busy because we've had lots of disasters, and Gabrielle, and before that Christchurch, and the explosion in Tonga, and he said, the interesting thing from his perspective is that while it's often levelled at humans that we are selfish and self-serving, he said maybe that's a result of the system that we find ourselves in, in contemporary times. Because when disasters happen, he said pretty much without exception, people drop everything and pull together. And that sense of community, regardless of where you whether you were the mayor of the town or the homeless guy, that people pull together and you see community happen. You see that real generosity of spirit and generosity of care and genuine care for your fellow human. Because the situation demands that, because nobody survives as an island. So I like to be optimistic about these things.
Can I jump in with my cynicism?
You may.
With my cynicism?
Hit me.
Competition can only succeed when there's something to be won. So when we're in places of disaster, when we're in places of poverty, you can't succeed as a competitor, as a dominator, because you're not able to sustain yourself with the winnings.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be won. You need to work together to build those wealths. Yeah. Yeah. So it's...
But that goes back...
Is it a thing of heart, or is it a thing of we just can't do it yet?
Or maybe it's a thing of circumstances. You know, you were talking about the modulation. It's like when we're down, we work together. You know, and when we're up, we go our own ways and achieve our own things and we strive. So that maybe that's also part of the human condition. Maybe we are all of those things.
I think that's the interesting thing of life, because especially when we watch movies and we love the villain, or we find that crazy guy fascinating, because we know that we could be that person, right? If it's a human, it's a condition, like we can do that. We can be that person. So, yeah. And that's why I find traveling so inspiring and meeting new people and new cultures, because you understand different cultural backgrounds and the ways that people see life. Another cool thing that we can throw in the mix there. Do you get to understand and study different systems like around the world and how they are operating? Like when it comes to capitalism, socialism, whatever. Is it something that interests you when it comes to understanding economy of different places around the world?
If you study political studies, there's definitely something you do. I never took political studies. I did one paper on international economics, and we had a focus on how the rising economies in the East sort of interacted with one another and were able to grow, and what theories they were using at the time to sort of back their progress. Taiwan was one of the locations I focused on, and they have these really cool things that they've built. The government's invested in these. There's 3 of them science parks where you go and you do education, and then after your education, you're staying on site and you're working in there, and you're it's all integrated into one, their education and their development of new technology, and they push out some incredible technology. I think the zooms, the new phones with the really good zooms, I believe that technology for the zooms came through those science parks. Yeah, they've done some awesome stuff. So yeah, I reckon our government, surely we can have a science park or two, eh? That's pretty on. Yeah.
When you give opportunities to people, Stella, when you make it fun, when you're learning and you're making it something fun, and there's you're incentivizing people to go there and create.
Yeah, sure.
We're amazing, eh? Humans
you're
are
tapping into people's passion, you know.
Yes.
And it's like, so teaching at tertiary level, but previous life. But people are difficult to teach if you can't tap into their want, into their desire. You don't have to teach if people are questioning, people wanting, because they're popping out these ideas, right. And I really subscribe to the idea that, every semester when I was teaching, I learned so much of my students.
Aye.
I was the student,
Aye.
and how cool is that,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think for our young people, for our rangatahi, we need to look at them as these repositories of potential.
Right.
And to have them excited and tapping into that and growing and discovering. How cool.
In Te Reo Māori, we don't have teach and learn, we just have ako. We don't have teacher and student. Akonga.
Yeah.
Ai. Yeah. Maybe kai ako and akonga, but still ako. Ako.
Yeah.
Ai. Yeah, it's the same process.
It is exactly that same process. And separating it out creates divisions that probably aren't functional. You know, they aren't helpful.
Ai.
So, yeah, you're in such a privileged position to be able to interact and create relationships with your students, you know?
Aye. And hopefully spark some passion.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, they're watching us, that's for sure. Shout out to the students. School holidays, jumping on the Altbays chats.
You just need to study more, to be honest.
Come on, guys.
Out comes the big whip.
Go practice some drums. Teach for the neurodiverse and the neurotypical will still learn, but teach for the neurotypical and the neurodiverse will suffer. There you go. Pan badass. Kia ora. It feels like the more our country grows, the smaller our communities get. We got some cool comments there. We have a couple of questions. First one from Mr. Fauzi Hassan. Shout out. Kia ora, Fauzi. How do you guys view the seemingly urgency of climate change versus the economical toll these societal changes will take on poor people in their everyday lives? Let's start with this soft, easy question. Thanks, Fauzi.
There you go. That was actually one of the last straws with me and my budding profession as an economist. Was me and my mate, we spent 2 days at the New Zealand economic conference. So collection of all Aotearoa economists. I say Aotearoa as if there weren't just Pākehā there. It was only Pākehā. And there was 2 or 3 talks that actually touched on climate change out of, a 2-3 day conference, and did not touch on it in a way that gave any credence to the genuine weight of pushing our environmental systems to the brink of collapse, of our land use, this is what I'm saying when we're pushing our things too far and trying to get too much out of them. We degrade our land when we don't give it time to sit and just sit. When we put these chemicals and these nutrients in there, we extract more than is able to get back in. Something like this. I'm not a soil scientist. I lost my track. Just like that, eh? Just like that.
Talking about the soil. Well, you were talking about the days that you spend in.
Aye. And so let me set the scene. It's the last day of this economic conference. Me and my mate, Morgs, who I mentioned earlier, we're walking down the waterfront, getting ready for the cocktail evening, the awards ceremony. He did a really good talk on public finance and using different thoughts, different economic senses to understand how we actually can public finance. But we're walking down the waterfront and we see at the waterfront they've got this real moving slideshow of Pacific Islanders sharing their kōrero, their stories about their genuine experience with the effects of climate change in their homelands, whether that's flooding, storms, this water, sea level rise, and them having to bag up the things, them having to move out of ancestral family homes because they're no longer becoming livable, they're being flooded out. And our mates, the economists, are walking by, have a quick lick, and we'll just keep walking. And we get up there, we sit and we watch all of it, and we go, oh man, that was moving. And it's kind of disappointing that we've had more talking about, it's a big problem, and for economists who our job is to look at these problems and these challenges and try to come up with economic ways to deal with them. It's an exciting challenge. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's
and you've
not
got these
cool.
other people going,
But yeah, we're hiding from it. Your words that I can't say on the internet. Strengthen up. Yeah. But yeah, if we get up there and some guy's going, he said something real dismissive
It's
about
your
it.
bro calling you, man. Is that
It's
him?
my 8 o'clock alarm letting me know no more screen time.
Oh, wow.
It's bedtime. It's nighttime. Yeah.
That's the best way to interrupt a show. Wow, you have 4 cameras and a lot of LAT in your face. I'm sorry, bro.
I'll be like this for the rest of the night now, just resting my eyes.
Bring
If I
some
stop
sound.
talking, it's not I'm a sleeper, just resting my eyes.
But I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, say like having these lights for me, like it really changed my circadian
Yeah, I bet.
rhythm. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
yeah. I love doing this. I love doing what I'm doing, but yeah.
but you don't get up till 11 o'clock in the morning.
It's not great. Yeah. So the morning's a little bit harder to wake up because of the lights, I would say.
Yeah.
Everything's so connected. Sorry, it's just a cool thing that you were saying before, and then
To finish off my long complaint about what they're currently doing, there are really cool movements. There's the degrowth movement, which I've partaken in some of that kaupapa, and I think that's a really awesome movement of economists, politicians, and engineers looking at ways that we can destructure our economy, decouple from our need for growth, so release that need for growth and start to slow down, and not just slow down our growth, but slow down our consumption, start to cut out the fat and let us die a more dignified death before we come again and grow again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mythologies in that one, eh?
that's good.
Aye.
Oh no, it was just what the question was. Oh, I'm losing on blah blah. But it's really interesting. I heard something really interesting the other day. I was talking to this guy who was an old guy who I 100% would have, if I was going to pigeonhole somebody, which of course I don't do because I'm a sociologist, 100% would have said that he was a very traditional, view person about economy and about politics and all the rest of it. And he said to me, I don't like to talk politics because it's so divisive, but he said to me, he said, I think for 100 years, every time there has been an election, it's always been about the economy. And he said, and I just now think that it's time that the environment had its say.
Aye.
And I just about fell over backwards because it was just like it was a really simple way of putting it. But, we won't be having a conversation about the economy if we keep sprinting towards the cliff.
Yeah.
It's like there won't be an economy.
Yeah.
And so we need to think about this. No, we actually need to do about this.
Do you know when the theories of man-made climate change were first predicted from our fossil fuel use?
I think it was about 1954 or something.
1954?
Yeah.
A little bit earlier?
1932.
A little bit earlier?
1863.
A little bit later. 1890s. 1890s was when we first predicted that our use of fossil fuels was going to actually change our atmospheric conditions, and this would lead to the changes of temperature. And from there, now we've developed, and then we get the, what are they called? Feedback loops. Less ice means less white reflective. We've got more blue absorbing. Ice shelves melting is okay. Ice shelves melting is not okay. Ice lands melting. If it's on land, into the water.
Yeah.
More water, more reflection. If it's already in the water, sort of less, but still less white, more reflection. More hot, more dying, more green, or less green, more dying. Deserts. Yeah.
And yet capitalism goes running headlong into it. I had a friend who did his master's thesis on the Inuit in Alaska. Hang on, my ears are falling off. Not my ears. And he was saying, so here there was this in his thesis. Here is this group of people, traditional, indigenous people, whose way of life has really marginalised them, put them into huge poverty and all the rest of it. And climate change is melting all the sea ice,
Aye.
which is
That's the one.
which is destroying, you know, their traditional hunting grounds because, you know, there's nowhere for the polar bears to go. There's nowhere for the, you know, whatever. And instead, and the thing that has caused this, which is, you know, fossil fuel climate change, has allowed the fossil fuel companies to rub their hands together and go, oh, wow, look, we can now drill the Arctic, you know, because it's not going to freeze over anymore. And it's just like the insanity of that type of thinking about that short-term greed and that short-term gain for, you know, the shareholders of this company.
I have a cool comment from the audience that I want to throw in the mix because it matches with what we're saying now. So Emma Gustafsson, Emma, kia ora. Is capitalism the problem or is it human greed? In another system, human greed will still exist. Right. Food for thought. This is Emma. Thanks,
that's
Emma.
Not Emma, man, that's Ali.
Yeah, but she wrote at the end, this is Emma, by the way. So she's probably using Ali's. Thanks, Taylor. So yeah, there you go. That feeds our conversation a little bit more.
Aye. Neoliberal capitalism is what we have. And it's actually...
Can you explain that, please?
So neoliberal economics, neoclassical economics feeds into neoliberal... what did I just say? Neoliberal capitalism. Neoliberal capitalism follows these... It's neoclassical economics, which is what I've studied. And so neoclassical economics supports frameworks that supports the individuation and the privatization of our social assets. One of the first moves of the neoliberal economy was the sale in Britain of their oil fields to private stockholders. So it is now, instead of this being socially owned oil and so extracted for society, it's now owned by private institution, so it's extracted for private gain.
Yeah.
It's extracted for profit. So perhaps we would see that if it was still socially owned, there'd be more social conscience able to discuss, okay, actually, do we need more of this oil? We can clearly see the effects of it. Do we need more? So neoliberal capitalism takes away a lot of the ability for society to correct themselves. So if we're like, I can work on my own greed all I want, but if the people who have the power over the assets which are destroying the world aren't working on their greed, then they're going to continue to extract. And they're going to continue to seek out ways to instill consumption and consumerism in the populace so that they can continue to line their pocket.
Beautiful explanation. Thank you.
Kia ora.
Because we hear the term all the time and you put it very well.
Aye, aye.
So going to that point of the greed, of the capitalism and greed. So from what you're saying, it's just complicated because it's just rooted in the system that we're living, right? We're just operating in that.
It takes away, I believe that a big part of our journey as humans is to overcome the 7 deadly sins, as the Bible would call it. In the Buddhist, you've got the 7 ways as well, which is about something you should do rather than something you shouldn't do. But it's still this ideas of overcoming greed and things like that. This is part of our journey. And so there's some argument to be made that if we all as people achieve this, then the people who have the power, who are feeding into their greed the most, lose their power because they can't continue to extract it from us. I don't know if that's the strongest argument, but regardless, the argument is that these people have the power. It's their duty to work on their greed, because regardless of what I believe, I can't mine oil tomorrow and I can't stop the mining of oil tomorrow. That's not in my realm of possibilities. This is someone else's.
There is a thing about collective action, though, isn't there?
Aye.
Because as an individual, you may not be able to stop that mining, but as a collective, you can.
Aye.
And certainly,
Sorry.
Anadarko, the protests about the offshore oiling, oil drilling, when was that, 5 or 6 years ago? And there were people from here who sailed up and protested,
Aye.
and stopped that.
Aye.
So, there are certainly examples where collective action will stop that. But, neoliberalism, the idea of neoliberalism, reinforces that idea of an individual and myself, myself going up the food chain and everybody else not.
Aye. Individuation.
So the system of neoliberal capitalism feeds individual greed or individualized greed. Where the human now has become a project to be worked on. And so education, for example, which used to be seen as a collective good, is now seen as an individual right, but also as an individual imperative. For you must work on yourself to improve your chances. You see where I'm going with this? So rather than looking at some of those institutions like education as being for the collective public good, it's been individualized, and that's a result of neoliberal capitalism. And I think one of the stumbling blocks for people to understand some of the corrosive harms, and I say corrosive harms, not just harms, because they are corroding harms of neoliberal capitalism, is that the idea of capitalism is this idea of, I can just go out and I can make shoes and I can open up a shop and put a signboard outside and sell my shoes. That's what capitalism is. I can do that thing. But actually, that's not the capitalism that we operate under today. What we operate under today is corporate capitalism. So we have these massive corporations that hide behind numerous brands. Like something like most of the world's food production is owned by, I think, 8 companies or 10 companies or something ridiculous. So it's this distillation of wealth that takes that wealth out of individual communities and into the coffers of some corporation that is such an overwhelming problem that I think the only way that individuals who are experiencing the worst of climate change, that are experiencing, the worst harms that come from this type of system, that the only hope is for collective action, is for people to come together and unite and say, actually, no, we need to say this is wrong and we need to do what we can to stop it as a group. Right. And again, that comes down to the idea of forming relationships with people to achieve things.
Right.
Do you think that
you all look so serious?
I love this because I understand. Like I feel like it's a concept. It does make sense in my mind so clearly that the people have all the answers, because when people get together, you just can't stop the people. We're too strong.
Right.
But that's the catch-22 of the thing of getting people to understand what has to be done. We even had a comment in one of our clips recently when we were talking about politics, and we had a young table, and this table was very young as well, but it was really young. It was like a labor, one of the guys was from the Labor Party, 21 years old. And then someone commented, because we were talking about poverty and wealth, and then someone commented, a bunch of wealthy Pakihas, shout out Brazil, a bunch of wealthy Pakihas discussing something that they don't even know what it is. And I understand that because, like you when you live something, when it's part of your reality, you can talk about it and you can explain. But you also need the people who had the privilege to receive education and to understand. And we have to understand, like, these people have to understand, like, we are collective, like if I had the privilege to receive education and I can do my part to support the people who don't understand the concept, I feel like just by having this format and having conversations, I'm doing my part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my question for you guys when it comes to action. What does action actually mean for you, Stella? Is it going there, protesting and having the board, or like nowadays with the internet, it's just this thing with like getting people together and trying to break because there's a lot of irony, like especially nowadays with the internet, you don't even know if people are serious or not. There's a comment and you're like, are they serious? Are they joking? So like breaking that sarcasm, getting rid of that and say, we have to talk real terms, like we have to speak. We have to talk to each other and try to change. So what do we do when it comes to action? Because the corporates are big, they're powerful, they're running the game. We feel powerless sometimes.
Right.
So I think that we are all different. We all have different skills, different attributes. We've got different ways of acting and responding to the world. We have different strengths and we have different weaknesses. And so therefore, in order to have a successful protest, you need to harness the particular strengths of the people in your group to those particular areas. So some people are brilliant at writing letters. They should be the letter writers. Some people are brilliant at being on the front line. Some people are brilliant at organising the food. So everybody again comes together and it brings out that idea of community. What can we all do to make this thing work? And so it's not that everybody should do this one thing. It's that everybody should have, or everybody should. Unshould that should. If we have a common goal, then if the intention of all of those people is to work towards that common goal, you start to ask the question, how can I contribute? How can I work towards this? What is it that I can bring that is going to strengthen this? How can I bring allies together? Who else in the community has similar values that would support this type of movement? It's you can ask different questions when you look at it from that perspective, rather than saying, oh, okay, we're all going to, paddle our waka out to stop the drilling. Some people can do that, and some people can't. But we can all do something, and it's those little bits of something that make something big, that create movement.
Right.
Revolution.
There you go.
Come on, bro.
Aye. Healing can't come through broken people. So for me, the first action I can take the first action that should be my focus is my own healing, my own coming to fullness as a human being. And for me, that means quite an intensive spiritual journey. And perhaps I'm not there yet, but I continue to walk, and perhaps I dawdle at times, but I continue to walk. In terms of the economic kaupapa, I have done some research and I've done little bits and bops, but I get frustrated when I'm having ideas that follow logical reasoning and they're not being heard because the game is a little unfair. And when this happens, I get angry and want to resort to violence, and that's not a good way to solve problems. So instead, I find a lot more interest in, okay, it's clear to me that these systems aren't working. What would work better? And having a pathway forward is what I'm looking into, was what I'm interested in pursuing, around these ideas of using, there's this new field of analysis called fractal analysis, which allows you to analyze infinitely faceted systems, which of course the economy, with 7 billion people attached, the entire everything all feeds into everything. And so fractal analysis is a nice way to look at this. For my mate Morgan, I think he's been a lot more productive in his process of the kaupapa. So he's now working for a local government, and he's able to actually bring some of these more forward-thinking ideas of economy to the attention of local council and go, okay, but if we make the argument like this, follow this logical reasoning, are we able to make change, and are we able to start shifting things like this? And it sounds like he's getting some listening ears, so that's super exciting. You touched earlier on how the corporations are owning everything. And this technically isn't capitalism, this is rentierism, which is the ability for people to take profit from a interaction just because they have some claim to the rights of something within that interaction.
Yep.
And there is some room for that, but it has grown to an incredible mass. And so just pointing to that, seeing this unfairness and inequity, it drags a lot more people. Even the people who go, I like competition, I'm all for the individuation of humanity, it's an enjoyable process, it leads to evolution. When the game is that unfair, then we start to go, let's just scrap those guys real quick so we can get ours real quick for everybody. Yeah.
You said that there is room for it, though. Where is the room for humans, for individuals to take over those resources and be owners of things and run?
There's room for competition.
There's room for competition.
There's room for the individual competition. There's room for my business to go against your business and say, I've got the better product. I'm better at this game than you are. When it comes to, okay, you're no longer allowed to play this game because I've played it in such a way that I own these things and I can exclude you, I think you're playing dirty. And so I'm going to resort to...
Or that my mess is so big that you can't possibly start.
That's only a thing, like, if you think about two people in the gym. Bruce is next to me, he's been lifting for years, he's massive. There is no size he can be that's going to stop me from going in and picking up weights and getting bigger myself.
Yeah, I don't know that always applies, though, to, a business sense or a corporation, does it?
Probably not always. But, go on.
No, I'm asking you the question.
We're not.
Oh, God, you put me on the spot. I don't know.
It's your spot.
I can.
It's a tricky one.
Taylor got something. Give us,
let's
Taylor.
go.
Give us. Let's go.
Sorry, man. Like, for example, Fonterra, right? They bought everyone. They monopolized the whole dairy industry in New Zealand.
Aye.
So he is the Bruce, the big fella.
Aye.
And as long as he wants to be Bruce as well, he won't be Bruce in New Zealand anymore, right? Because he took over the whole gym.
But if you own your own farm, so if it is impossible for anyone to start their own farm, now we're playing And it is. I know for a fact that it's real difficult for people to get into farming for themselves. But if you are able to start your own farm and get your own cow and milk your own cow and then go and sell it at the local store, then you're able to engage in your own commerce. And there's room for that. But what you're talking about Fonterra, now it's starting to get a little bit tricky for me, because it is a collective of farmers, but is that all it is? I don't actually know too much about the shareholdership of Fonterra. I know that they definitely have some sway with the government, which tends to tell me that perhaps there's some people at the top.
I mean, it's probably a good example to say, and again, I don't know much about, so let's not call it Fonterra, let's call it Corporation A. Corporation X. We can't call it X, it's Twitter.
That's right.
See, we can't even use the alphabet anymore. Anyway, so
I never learned it anyway.
So a corporation also, because of size, ends up having control over the structural elements that market operates in. So they end up having sway over policies. They end up having sway over legislation. And those types of exertions of power collectively act or cumulatively act to make it nearly impossible for anybody else to thrive in that market. And so, sure, you might have Corporation A, is that what we settled on? And you might have individual B. Individual B really doesn't have a chance of any particular scale because of the sheer size and the sheer influence of Corporation A.
I see your point, though, that it's not impossible to exist.
No, that wasn't my point. My point was just that competition's okay.
But I mean,
good.
even
we're talking now about in this current system. You're talking about in this current
Yeah.
system. But quickly on one thing you said in there was something is incessant in our current economic mindset was individual B has no chance for scale. This is part of our growth mindset of economy. This is part of that I want. You shouldn't be aiming for scale. You should be aiming for, can I meet my needs? Once my needs are met, do I need more, or am I just desiring more, or am I just wanting to play the game more? Right.
I want to ask you guys a question, slightly different from what it is, but it still connects with it. We publish a community magazine, a free magazine called Coral Minds, coralminds.nz. Stella, beautiful contributor, writes for free. We don't have money to pay for contributors yet. We're getting there. You know, we really praise for the high quality of the magazine. So it costs a lot to run that magazine. So the money that comes goes. It's an investment for us, right? Some people are really interested in writing, but because it's a profession for them, they cannot, because they get paid by big media companies, which, when you understand New Zealand, there's a little bit of a monopoly when it comes to who is playing the media game. And we had that happening before, of like, I really love what you're doing and I wish I could collaborate. I cannot, which means the person who is paying me doesn't allow me to write for someone else. I understand, but I also see the fear. What is it? Is it a fear of the ideas that person might say that gets in a conflict with the interests of someone bigger? You know, like, I know that it is a bit far, but like at the same time, it connects to that thing of like big corporations playing the game, because at the end of the day, big corporations only exist because of us, of employees, of humans playing that game, and then you kind of become you got.
Well, we're all pawns in the system, really, aren't we?
I'm a bishop or a rook. I'm a rook. They can go real fast, real far.
Oh, you chess player, you.
There you go.
Oh no.
There was a guy that was putting something on about there was chess on Monday nights down.
Yeah, Brett Sounds.
I'm
our
really,
friend. Yeah,
I'm really keen on
and it's
doing
growing
that.
the club. Yeah, shout out to Brett. Yeah,
Can
every
you,
Monday.
Brett, can you please put another advert on Facebook so that I can?
Where is it still? Is it the bowling club?
It was at
Do
the
you
town
remember?
hall.
Sure, man.
Town hall? There you
It
go.
was, but I don't know if it's still there. That's why I need to know.
Brett, if you're watching us, man, send us a message and we'll give it a plug. But anyway,
I'm really crap at chess, but I'd like to learn how to.
gotta start somehow. So that's an example, right? Even when the corporation allows, and well, other things can happen, but they still play a big part of what people can say, right?
Yeah, it's about controlling the market, though, isn't it? You know, it's like, you know, if person Z, I'm going through the alphabet really quickly here.
Yes, skip
if person Z writes for a particular corporation B, we're on to now, and that contract says you cannot write for anybody else, it's a way of controlling that market, isn't it?
Aye.
You know, it's a way of you're not going to get to a better position if they can control that. Now, sure, there's a bigger pool of people that can write for you, yay.
Yep.
But it becomes a structural obstacle.
Yeah.
Yep.
Especially when it's something that allows you to be yourself. You know, when you have the opportunity to tap into something that gives you 100% freedom, but you cannot.
Aye.
Because there's a job involved, you know, like, and I'm not criticizing because I understand, I've been there,
Yep.
but I just find it very interesting on how sometimes we lose a lot of our own personality there, you know, like of what we want to say, what an opportunity to say what you want to say, but you cannot say because of what you are attached to or who you work for.
Aye.
Right? Yeah. I love this conversation, and I love how, especially the school, the educational system at the school here, it's supportive of what we do. Of course, we know the topics and what we can say and how we can say, but I feel like when you stop people from thinking and from sharing their thoughts, you getting into a very
Grey area.
Lame.
Hey.
Boring. Maybe not lame. That's
Boring.
ableist, isn't it?
Yes.
Boring place.
Bro, before we wrap this up, what a beautiful corero. Is there hope?
Is there hope?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one in my class. Oh, you
Shout out to Hope.
Shout out hope. Economics, hope.
Yeah, that is hope.
Run the game.
There's always hope.
There's always hope, bro.
We could develop ourselves into a way that we bring it back down and we start to look after our planet and we start to heal that and we can bring it back into a beautiful place. There's hope that we can just be real brainy and create some... I've seen them building this big like thing in some country that's got lots of money and it's just like one and then there's just like wildlife all around it, but there's like millions of people that can live in that. And then we can go up to the moon and we can go to these other planets and we can go get our extractions there. We can be a space civilization and look after our planet. There's hope. There's ways. There's ways future. Yeah. Star Wars. I like that one. I'm pretty keen. I reckon I could be a space explorer. Yeah.
And from the sociological, is that the word?
Yeah.
From the sociological point of view,
I think there's hope.
for our society, yeah.
I think there's hope. I think there's hope because inherently people care and have empathy for other people and for other people's situations and for the planet and for the environment. And I think that as long as people care, that there is hope. I think that degrowth.
I like degrowth.
I like degrowth too. Yeah. I definitely like degrowth. I think
Massive go, Papa.
it is the only way forward because the current trajectory is the cliff. And there's hope in that. There's something about this idea, rather than getting bigger, how about villageization? Let's move away from city, city big. I'm not saying that cities are bad. I'm saying that this idea that bigger is always better. I don't think that's the case. I think sometimes there is something about valuing what we have. There's something about valuing the soil that we stand on. You know, there's something about the smallest things in life are sometimes the beautifulest things. And they don't have to be complicated. It can be the sun on your shoulders, you know. It can be the glint on the water. It can be appreciation for this beautiful, beautiful place we live in. There is hope.
Quesadillas. Speaking of quesadillas, shout out to our friends from Cooked Coromando. Brought some beautiful Mexican kai for us. How was that?
Oh, yeah, boy.
It was delish.
Yeah.
Next time we'll bring the tequila as well.
Oh, now we are Invite me for that one.
Right. I will. I'll bring the team back. If you are coming to the Coromando, make sure to check them out. Cooked Coromando, beautiful kai in Whitianga. The team is awesome, colorful restaurants. They do takeaways as well. So, you know, you can have it at home or just like us here, having a beautiful corero. And I already said, but Corominds.nz, community magazine, if you want to write for the magazine, if you want to contribute, if you want to, whatever you want to do, if you want to put your artwork there, we'll take it, man. We are, well, it is for the community. It's from the community to the community. So I think that's why it's working.
100%.
Stella, thank you so much for all the beautiful things that you do and for all the beautiful ways that you find to collaborate with us. It's a pleasure.
It's an honor. It's an honor. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Logan, my man.
Kia ora.
Good chat, brother. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me on. Thank you both for stimulating some good discussion. No, it's been a blessing. Yeah.
It's one of those things, like I won't say that I was scared of, but like these topics that you just don't know about them.
Aye.
But it's been part of my process, you know, of like it's fine. It's fine to not know things, you know, like ask the questions and you know, if you don't know, it's fine. There will be things that you don't know as well. And
so much.
And when we chat, we find so many common grounds there as well and ways to support each other. So I really appreciate what you're doing and thanks for sharing your knowledge and your history.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Thank you for giving me a platform to share from.
Thank you. Next,
people is asking who's coming next week.
Ooh. Got me on the spot. Next week we have Patrick Salmon. Patrick Salmon works with fashion, New Zealand fashion. He was recently at New Zealand Fashion Week, and he does some work. I think it's with pregnant women. I have to double check that, but definitely into the fashion world, which is a subject that we brought to the show a few months ago, and we're bringing it back. And is it the 12th next week? 12th? What day is today?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah. So there will be Emma Jensen. Emma Jensen, it's a producer. She's a music producer, works with Fat Freddy's Drop.
Let's go.
How cool. Let's go.
Cool.
So it's going to be a good week. And thanks so much for watching. Anything else, Papa? Have I missed anything?
Nope.
And thank you very much, you as well, sir, behind the computers for making this happen.
Thank you, guys.
See you next week. Goodbye. Peace.